This is kind of our goal to share our story is there's hope. It's not a dead end. You're not stuck where you're at. You are not your diagnosis. That is not your identity. There's more. And God wants us healed and happy here on earth because he wants us to do his work.
Welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe, where we pour positive back into your day, sharing stories from real people who have made it through some real struggles, but were able to restore their health, hope, and peace. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and as a certified coach, I'm here to guide you to be your best self-advocate, to help you restore your health, ignite your faith, and conquer those fears while you navigate your own healing journey so you can eventually exchange your dis-ease for durability. If you're looking for hope and encouragement to live a life you love, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Rose, your host, and today I have a really interesting couple, a dynamic duo, if you will, who's going to share some really encouraging words with you, and I think maybe even help save you some headaches. There's nothing more devastating when you are seeking health on a journey than to get a diagnosis that really is not your diagnosis. Well, Jill and Tom have a story to share with you that might help save you some headaches in the future. So I'd like to introduce and welcome to the show, Jill and Tom Vandenheuvel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Maybe as a point of introduction, I don't know, Tom, do you want to just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you guys are?
Yeah, so I'm Tom, and this is my wife, Jill, and we've been married for 34 years. We have 3 adult children. We have a daughter-in-law, a son-in-law, 5 grandsons, and a lot of grandpups. They just seem to be getting added. And we're just going to share a little bit about our health journey and how we went from health to illness and back to health again, and kind of the steps that took, and just how God intervened at different times and walked us through that whole process.
Yeah, every health journey is so unique. And, the more that I learn about different people's paths, it's just really surprising to me how unique the actual solution surfaces as well. So let's go back maybe to when kind of the first symptoms started showing up for you and how you knew that there was anything wrong that you started seeking answers for.
Yeah, so maybe you can start with.
Yeah, so it was 2021. Both of us had established careers. I was with my company for 17 years. Tom was with his for about 20 years. And God at that time was leading me out of my career. And I was like, wait a minute, I've done this. I plan to do this till I retire. And he just released me. He made it very, very clear. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll early retire and volunteer and who knows what. So it was December 2021 when that happened. And then it was February of 2022 where Tom started experiencing symptoms of anxiety, kind of panic attacks, sleepless nights. He wasn't himself. It was like, what is going on? And so at that time, we, of course, went to our medical doctor, and they prescribed him some, I can't even remember what it was initially. He's been on so many.
Really, looking back, I remember probably the month prior, maybe having some weird feelings at different times, and I just shrugged it off.
Sure.
We were in the best physical health we'd ever been in. And so I just thought, oh, these are just some weird feelings. And then the beginning of February, I went to work one Monday and I came home that night. I didn't feel well. I went to bed early. I was up in the middle of the night and it was like a switch just flipped. And I had these, it almost felt like a shakiness, but it was inside and it wouldn't stop. And then just some fear and anxiety. And that's just how it started. And it was abrupt. And I was fortunate enough to get into the doctor that same week. And I was diagnosed with depression. And so we started a low dose of a SSRI. And that's how the process started. Over the next few months, I was still experiencing these things and had still seen some other doctors, and then went and saw a third health professional, and we started increasing that dose because things weren't changing.
So
They said
you
to
weren't getting any relief or any improvement with the SSRI they'd given you. Okay.
no, and I was working, and that was very difficult to do my job with these symptoms. And so we slowly started to progress the dosage. And they say with these meds, it takes 6 to 8 weeks. So you just kind of keep taking them, going, okay, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. Um, and so we kept increasing the dose. And about June of 2022, my company at 20 years, you get a sabbatical. And so my sabbatical was scheduled. And so I was going to take the next month off, which was supposed to be a wonderful time to maybe, experience what retirement would be like. And at that time, I still had no relief, was still really struggling.
And they also have prescribed like benzodiazepines as well, highly addictive medications.
Mm.
All of this time they kept adjusting doses, increasing doses. They were giving him things to help him sleep. So all this pharmaceuticals that they keep increasing, right? And he was not getting any relief, and he was having increased internal symptoms.
Okay.
And as a family, we were taking the advice of the doctors, the therapists, of, he just needs to go to work. He needs to stay busy. He needs to live life. He can't let this overtake him. And so we're pushing him to try to get him to do this. And then during that time,
And so then I pushed back a lot. The things that they were asking me to do, I was not able to do. And I just felt like there was something more than what I was being told. I just felt like this, how did this just flip? And I just didn't feel normal. I just felt like there was more going on. And so then I got to my sabbatical, and like Jill had mentioned, I'm on numerous medications now.
Do you remember how many you were on at that point?
Probably at that time,
probably 3 or 4.
3 or 4
Okay.
medications, and they all interact differently. They don't tell you how they're going to interact together. It's just they're supposed to do this and that, and pretty soon you got a pharmaceutical soup. And so the beginning of my sabbatical in June, it had been 4 months on that first initial medication, and nothing had changed. And so then it's time to go to medication 2. And so then we switched to that medication, and I started that medication, and probably about 8 to 10 days in, I crashed. My family could see it right away. They could see something even had changed again. But literally the only time I got any relief was sleeping. And so I literally stayed in bed for a week. I would get up from about 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. But otherwise I tried to sleep. That was the only relief I was getting. And again, hanging on to this notion that it'll kick in. You're going to start to feel better. And so I did that for about those 10 days, and then I kind of hit a wall, and I'll let Jill maybe share what the next step was and where we ended up.
So during that time also, when he was awake, he would just go out and sit on the deck. That's it. I mean, I had to force him to eat. I mean, before this, we were highly involved in CrossFit. We were honed in on our diet. We were in the best shapes of our life, and he wasn't eating. He was losing weight. He just wanted to sleep all the time. I'm trying to get him up. We were arguing all the time because he's not himself, and I'm panicking, like, what is going on, right? And even the doctors were like, I don't know why this isn't helping. So then at the end of, or middle of June-ish, I went to a relative's graduation open house out of town. And I called home, and I couldn't get a hold of him. He wouldn't answer. And I started panicking. So then I called my sister-in-law, and my daughter, her husband's in law enforcement. So anyway, we had a well check done because I was like an hour out. And they found it, couldn't get him. Finally, they got him to the door, right? So basically, he was trying to self-medicate himself because he did not want to feel what was happening inside. He basically overdosed himself on whatever he could find. So we came home and found him. And at that point, we took him into the ER because I don't know what he all took, what needs to happen. We admitted him into a psychiatric ward for a week, just for safety reasons, obviously, and to figure out what's next. And so all during this time, I'm journaling, I'm daily in the Word, and God kept showing me there will be victory.
Yeah.
Even though at the time I was like, seriously? That does not look like victory to me, right?
Because it kind of looked like it was getting worse and worse. I mean, you weren't seeing even any tiny improvements.
Right. So at that point, I had to contact his work because he had to go on a medical leave in the middle of his sabbatical. And Tom during this time was just like, I'm not getting better. I don't know what else to do. So we switched psychologists. Of course, when he was inpatient, they switched his medications. And I was frustrated. They kept him on his benzodiazepines because he was obviously abusing them. So at that point, we locked up all of his medications. I was dispensing his medications. And he, again, since they switched his meds and they said, okay, it'll be another 4 to 6 weeks that they could take to, do anything. So again, Tom, when he returned home, back to the deck.
Yeah. Then I came home and again, you're starting now on another dose, a different med. And so in my mind thinking, okay, I just got to ride this out. It's going to get better. And so I still didn't want to be awake. I still wanted to sleep. It was the only time I was getting relief. And I would try to explain to my family what I was feeling physically. There was a lot of mental anguish, but there was a lot of physical anguish. And I couldn't explain to them. I would tell them, I feel like I'm just shaking. And they're like, you're not shaking. And everybody's telling me this is in my head. No, it's just anxiety. You're not really feeling that. And I couldn't explain that to him.
And he kept saying, there's something not right in my head. There's just not right. I don't know what it is. And they kept telling him, it's just your anxiety. It's just your depression. You just need to keep moving forward.
Do you recall, Tom, that whole time about being in the psychiatric ward? And do you have a crystal memory of all that?
I have a pretty good memory. My memory did during this whole period, I did have blips of where I couldn't remember things, but I do remember going in and, I had taken that day more than the prescribed amount. I wasn't like unconscious or anything like that, but I'd taken more than the prescribed amount because I'm like, more is better. It's going to give me relief. Kind of like when you have a headache and you take some aspirin and I'm going to take some more. You can't do that with these drugs. And so, when I went in, I remember meeting with the psychiatrist there the next day and we talked about it and they switched me to another. This now would be my third SSRI. And I remember being in there and, I would meet daily with them about the medications and they were adding some things here and there and switching some things. And a lot of it was about mind distraction. Like, like you need to look outside and think of what things smell like and look like. And just, it was almost like this anxiety and depression was just something that, I could just kind of concentrate on other things and don't ruminate about how you're feeling. And I was so frustrated because I'm like, you guys, that's not what I'm experiencing. This is just the physical feeling that will not go away. I can't stop it. And it's so uncomfortable. And my poor family, we're all listening to the professionals and they can't understand why I can't just do these things. And I'm trying to tell them I can't do these things. And so there was a lot of conflict and we've never been an arguing couple. And we had bitter arguments that we had never experienced. And especially when I came home and my sanctuary then was sleep, or I'd go sit on the deck and I would almost try to be as calm as I could. So I would just feel like I wasn't feeling this. And I didn't want to make myself a sandwich. I just wanted to be waited on because all I was doing was waiting for the medication to catch up. And so we did that from the middle of June until the middle of August. And then we had another episode. And throughout all of this, there was all kinds of, we called them God winks, where things happen and we're like, okay, God, we understand you're in this, you're with us. I didn't always get answers I was looking for from people, but I did get things that looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, that was instrumental in what was going on. And so
Let me backtrack to where he was in the psych ward the first time. Share the story of that young gal.
Oh, people are admitted at all times. And so they come and this gal, I don't know. I wasn't really, I'm a pretty outgoing person, but I wasn't really very outgoing there. I just wanted to be comfortable. And so this gal, I remember we were having a discussion. She had a rough entry into the unit, and that's a whole different experience. And that night we were sitting there and we were at these tables and it was just me and her at that time. And I don't know how we got on the subject, but she had commented that, and it was just, the hair on I don't have hair, but the hair on the back of my neck stood up. And she said, yeah, there's a special place for me in hell. And I'm just like, the hair on the back of my neck kind of stood up. And prior to this, we had a sermon series in church for about 4 weeks on hell. And I'm just like, oh man. And so that's kind of in your mind. And so I just asked her questions about, well, why do you think you're going to hell? And she said, well, I'm a bad person and I've done bad things. And so I said, well, who goes to hell and who doesn't? And she said, well, murderers go to hell. And, so she was kind of categorizing who goes to hell and who doesn't. And I said, that's not totally true. And I said, and so then I kind of shared the gospel with her.
Wow.
She was very like, oh, wait a minute. So murderers don't necessarily go to hell. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty big sin, but there's not one sin is worse than the other. They're all sins. And so we kind of had that discussion. I shared the gospel with her. And then I told her, I said, why don't you write down John 3:16 and just look at that. I said, and read that. That'll help you. And I said, they have a clergyman that comes to the unit. I said, maybe you can ask them questions. They're going to explain it better than I can, but I can tell you a little bit. And then I had left that conversation and then I thought, I don't know if she's going to look that verse up. So in the library, they had Bibles. And so I went and got her a Bible and I brought it and I said, the verse is in here if you want to look that up. And so again, God had these wings. I'm like, why is this happening in this place? Why do I have to be here to do that? So yeah, that was kind of unique.
So anyway, I just wanted to have him share that because this is part of exactly why God has us exactly where he wants us in these situations, even though it's chaotic for us. Tom needed to be there for her on that day. Absolutely. Wow. And so as he's still being tortured inside, we get to the end of August and he kept saying, I can't do this. And, I basically was staying with him 24/7 or had someone with him to keep him alive, right, during this and try to figure out how can we help him? How can we do this, right? And then in August, I went to get my hair cut and then Tom was here alone and I'll let you share what happened.
Yeah. So I had just had enough. And so I'll need a second.
That's all right.
So I decided that was it. At this time, Joe had medications locked up, but I was able to get extra benzos, the not good drugs that can kind of, my goal was to make me feel, just feel no pain.
Yeah.
And then I pulled my car into the garage.
And so as he did that, he was in there for an hour. And by God's grace, the car quit.
Seriously. So you were in the garage door shut.
Oh yeah, I had the car running, the garage door shut. For not having the capacity, sometimes I was able to pull the porch, the garage door opener so nobody could get in. I mean, it was just kind of amazing. And yeah, the car stalled and I am just like, you got to be kidding me. Wow. And so I'd been in there about an hour. And so then I opened the garage doors and was able to get the car to chug out of the garage. And then I called 911 and they came and I ended up back at the ER. And what's miraculous again with the God winks was being in a garage with those fumes for an hour, I should have had some damage. I actually had flew over Mayo 1 and they thought they might have to transport me to Rochester to go into a chamber for carbon monoxide. I had no damage.
Wow. Oh my goodness, Tom.
And so I did not have to fly over there. I stayed in the ER. They gave me oxygen and other things. And at that point, I didn't quite understand all that. But for them, they were they were astonished that there was no carbon monoxide damage. And so hence, again, some of my poor decisions puts me back into the psych department because now we've got somebody who attempted suicide and we need to stabilize this person. And so I went back into the psychiatric department and we start switching some meds, doing some of that stuff. And as I'm in there, I've been here before. So I kind of know what that's going to be like. But on the outside, Jill has to deal with what I just did, first of all. And then I'll kind of share with what her next 10 days were like.
So I was getting my hair done when his sister called me to let me know that because he had called her to tell her that he was going to the ER and what happened. So she shared with me. Thankfully, I was with my friend.
Yes.
I actually called our kids and said, "You need to go to the ER. I can't go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just needed some time."
Yeah.
So thankfully, our son and daughter went up there and they readmitted him. And so during this time, I'm like, he can't come home. What are we going to do? Because I can't watch him 24/7. He's going to do what he needs to do, right?
Right.
And so at one point, they were actually going to discharge him. And I'm like, no. So,
And this is just so crazy because you guys had said you had been in kind of the best shape of your life. Life was just trucking
yeah.
along, things were good, and this just surfaced out of nowhere. And now you're dealing with multiple visits to a psych ward and all of these unknowns that I can't even imagine the pressure psychologically, emotionally, all of that.
Yeah. And on our kids, our grandkids, like, well, I have a grandpa, his mind's sick. What the heck,
Yeah, I remember our oldest grandson is like, "Oh, Grandpa needs to get his brain fixed."
We're like, yes, he does.
And it's like, that's kind of it. Yeah. And so,
Kids have a great way of boiling it down to the real stuff there.
and when I was there and Jill's out here kind of trying to figure out what to do, I was not the same person. I mean, I couldn't be trusted. I was lying. I was, I couldn't take my own medications. I didn't know who I was. It was like, who is this person?
Yeah, I didn't know what happened to my husband, and I was just trying to figure it out and try to, what can I do to help him? And so, next step, we found this facility, inpatient facility in Wisconsin that would accept him. And I'm like, okay, this is our next step. Of course, you go on their website and they raving reviews, right? So I told my son, I said, if this place doesn't help him, your dad is going to be so mad at me. And I felt horrible sending him to these places, but I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
So he went to this place in Wisconsin and it was an inpatient. So he was basically locked in this place and had roommates and all this, went to classes. And of course, they say, we can help him. We will get this figured out. Well, they changed his medications again. They up his medications. And this psychiatrist he dealt with, she was perplexed. Why is this not working? I would get to go visit him every weekend because it was so far away. It was about 3 or 4 hours away for me. So I got to go see him Saturdays and Sundays for 2 hours. And so,
and Jill, I'm sorry, how long was he there?
8 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So I could go, every weekend. So I could see him, a couple hours here and there. But when I would go, I would not see any change. It was the same. He was just being tortured inside. He would cry with me. He would just be so ruminating on everything. And I'm just like, okay, we can't keep talking about this. And a friend of mine went with me one time. And at one point he was laying on the floor. I laid on him and I just held him and prayed. And then the next minute we're walking around the room yelling at each other. It was crazy. And then also the psychiatrist, I was so frustrated with him that he wasn't responding. The very last week, they basically said, I think it's best if we cut ties with your wife, that you don't communicate with her. She doesn't come visit. Because it's like he's dependent on me is what they said. And he needed to be dependent on them. So they basically stepped him down into the psych ward the last week.
Oh my gosh.
Medicated the heck out of him. And then I get a call from him one day and he says, they're discharging me. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I'm like, okay. So I'm driving over there and they're like, okay, you're going to meet with the nurse for discharge, whatever. I'm about a half hour out from getting him and he calls me. He goes, hey, where are you? And I'm like, oh, about a half hour out. Okay, well, I'm in the lobby waiting for you. I'm like, what? And so I get there. I don't hardly recognize him because he's put on weight because their food there wasn't great. So I brought him a lot of snacks to snack on.
That's what I ate. That's what I ate.
Plus the medications, he was so bloated.
Sure.
From everything. And he's, like the hotel carts that you put your luggage on. So he had all of his belongings there, plus a paper bag about this big full of all the medications he was on or had been on during his stay there because they were his.
Oh my goodness.
including benzodiazepines, right?
Right back to that one again. How many were in that
Well,
bag?
I honestly don't even know. I was so like,
Yeah. I mean, for those who are listening and can't see, Jill is holding up like a foot by foot sized bag here.
like when you
That's
go to a boutique and you buy some sweaters and they put it in those paper bags, that's basically the size of
of the
what,
medication bag.
yeah.
Wow.
Because they were his, they had to send him home with them. But he's getting in the lobby with all of his stuff and these medications. So we get there, and also he hasn't been able to shave in how long? So he's just hairy all over.
Well, no, I didn't have a lot, but I did have a lot of facial hair. Yeah.
And I could tell he was very medicated, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So get him loaded up, head home, and he thought he could drive. So at one point, I'm like, it was against my best judgment. I allowed him to try to drive. He couldn't figure out how to start the car, to put his
Ooh.
foot on the brake to start it, because he's like, oh, it's just been so long, I don't remember. And
That's a good sign, maybe not to drive.
I didn't drive very long. It was
like-
it was a couple of miles, and I
It's
had
like-
I had to
so
pull over.
after that, because he was so medicated, I mean, when he got home, my daughter and our daughter still lived with us. I mean, we went through that, and we're just trying to dispense of all these drugs. Like, we can't have these around. What the heck? You know, I mean, 3/4 of them he didn't even take anymore. And they suggested he go to a step down type place, which was about an hour from where we were. It was kind of a day type.
It was, yeah, I was day camp.
basically.
I would go there. I'd have to be there by like 9 a.m, and I'd go there till like 3. And of course, I was fortunate enough. Jill still was retired, and so she was able to take me. I wouldn't have been able to drive there. She was able to take me up there, drop me off, go, do what she was going to do for the day, and then pick me up. And during this time, they started to wean me off some of the medications,
For my request.
and I started to slowly kind of feel a little better, just a little bit. And so through that process, then we went from going to class to virtual for a while.
Okay.
And then I had to do reports every week. When they started to look better and when they were getting the reporting, my insurance basically said, he's well enough, he can't come anymore. And so we got basically a couple hours notice. Hey, you're no longer enrolled. The insurance says you're well enough. And I did not feel normal, but I didn't feel as bad as I had been feeling. And so I'm like, well, maybe everything's starting to gel.
How were you guys, if I can just ask, how were you guys paying for all of this with you being retired and then you not being able to work?
Well, he
How
was
does-
on medical leave from
Okay.
work. Thankfully, he was getting a percentage of his pay, which was helpful.
Okay.
And during the time he was in Wisconsin, they actually notified him they had filled his position.
Oh,
And so he was still on leave. And then when he got discharged from this last place, he asked if there was another position that he could go back to. And so there was. And so he was feeling a little better, and they accepted him back. And so he went back to work, gosh, in November of 22.
I went back to work. It was like just the first week of December, and I worked for about 8 weeks. And about 4 weeks in, I crashed again. I remember calling Jill like, it's back. And I don't know
Okay, so
why.
you had kind
Or-
of weaned off the drugs and then
Well, all of them.
Not
He
all of
just
them.
got down to acceptable dose instead of a crazy high dose.
Yeah, but I'm still probably on at least 4 meds. I mean, I was still doing stuff for sleep. I was still on anxiety med, and then I was on some supplement anxiety meds. And so I was probably still on 4 or 5 meds, maybe even 6 or 7. It might have been, yeah, it probably was 6 or 7. And so I had this whole array of stuff I was taking, but I started to feel better, went back to work, kind of had a relapse, struggled for about 4 weeks to really do my job. Ended up having a meeting with my boss and his boss, who was my former boss, and our HR department. And they said, we can tell you're not yourself these last few weeks. And I said, yeah, I'm not getting any better. I don't know what happened. And so then at that point, they gave me some options of what I could do. And one of the options was to go on leave and try to figure this out and get healthy. And so I didn't know what we were going to do, but I chose the leave of absence again. That allowed me to go back onto disability. That's an insurance that we had. And so at that time, then I was done work. Now we got to figure out what we do. And up to this point, and I'm not against Western medicine, they have their place. If I break my arm, you know, a supplement's not going to help me. I need to go see a doctor. Western medicine has their place, but in this instance, with my general health or whatever I was experiencing, we're like, this isn't working. We can't look for this type of place again. And so Jill, thankfully, started to really research some things. I'll let her share a little bit about that.
And up to this point too, he had numerous therapists, EMDR therapy. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but so, I mean, throughout all this, we were trying everything possible that we could, that they were recommending. Okay, try this. You know, thankfully his work had this company that they recently joined up with that actually were a great resource for us at that time and helped find therapists and all of this, which was kind of my resource as well. They allowed me to have a therapist, my daughter to have a therapist. So that was really helpful. But then we kept saying, we need a redo. This isn't working. What can we do to make this better? And, we had touched a little bit into kind of holistic type things. I loved the theory of holistic, what God creates. Obviously that should help, right? But I knew he needed something like an inpatient type thing because he wasn't safe again.
Okay.
And I'm like, we can't keep going down this avenue.
Right. And can I share?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so one of the things with me this whole time, because now it had been a year. This was February to February. So we dealt with this for a year. I've been off all but 2 months in that year. Jill's full-time job is trying to take care of me and find me care and research things. And so again, God's plan. Jill would not have been able to do this if she was working.
Right.
She needed to be a full-time caregiver, and we're too young for that, but that's what happened. So then my whole solution to all this was they're going to give me a medication that's going to just make me feel right. And I was on high blood pressure prior to this, and you take that pill and it controls your blood pressure. Why can't I take another pill and have it do this? And so they had brought up over the course of this year, maybe I need to get off some of this stuff. Should I be doing some all natural stuff? And I'm like, no. These guys know what they're talking about. These are professional. Yeah, I kept telling Jill, but my family too would kind of interject it. And I kept telling them all, nope, it's just got to be a pill. And so I think this year of suffering for all of us, it wasn't just me. I learned later because I was so into this that I wasn't the only one going through it, even though I felt like it was just me. A lot of other people were suffering. And it took that year for me to even consider something else. And so I'll let Jill talk about her research.
Right. So I found one place in the whole US that had an inpatient holistic treatment place. I called them, I asked questions, and of course, insurance doesn't pay for that. So it's an out of pocket and tens of thousands of dollars to go there. And I was like, I believe this is the place we need to go for you to get off your medications, because that's what they talked about, getting off the medications, finding the root cause, things like this. And I presented it to him and he's just like, I don't know how we can make that work. I don't know. And he looked at it a little bit. And so when he ended up going on leave, medical leave, I'm like, okay, you have time to go. You don't have to take off of work. And some things really fell into place quickly that God basically gave us the green light that this needs to happen. So we were able to get the money in 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, thousands of dollars, 3 days.
Tens of thousands of
It's
dollars.
like, you had asked about how did we do this financially?
I don't know.
I don't know God's math.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just has worked out. It's crazy.
Wow.
One other thing is his family asked if he would be tested for ADHD to see if maybe that was part of the issue. And so he had visited this, I can't even remember her title, but anyway, remotely visited her. And she basically said, no, I don't think you have this. You've led a normal life.
Yeah.
I believe this is more physical than it is mental. And so he shared with her this place we were considering. And she said, you need to go.
Nice confirmation.
And we went to church, and the person, which wasn't our normal pastor, was giving the sermon. And during the sermon, he put this picture up on the screen, and it was of this church in the place where we were looking at.
Another confirmation.
And my daughter and I were sitting there, and we were just listening, and all of a sudden Tom's looking at us, and I'm like, he goes, Jill.
That's the place.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So that was God confirming again that that's where we need to go. So we got the money, we got these confirmations, and basically, I think, didn't we end up going in about a week?
It was crazy. Yeah. When we got the finances in 3 days, and I think within talking about it, getting the financing, having 3 confirmations of I don't have to work. We got this sign at church. We got this lady that says you need to go. I was on a plane to Arizona. One of my siblings went down with me.
Because during that time, we decided that I needed to get a job because we didn't know what was all going to happen with finances.
Sure.
And so I got a job, and I started the job that Monday, and he went to Arizona on Wednesday.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. So Tom went there for his 8-week stay.
Yeah, I can kind of share a little bit
Yeah.
about this place. So it's an all natural place. And so their goal is they don't necessarily say they can get you off all meds. Their goal is to get you off as much as they can and to first find the root cause. And so when I got there, the first day I went there, I met with some people, just a small group. And then the next day, I went and had a bunch of blood work done.
Mhm.
In fact, I don't know if they left any. I was just like, are you done? I mean, it was like, I kid you not, it was probably 10 vials of blood. I had to do a urine sample. And then I went and met with my medical team. They have a team of people that you meet with. And I said, well, this is what I'm diagnosed with. And they said, we don't care. And at first, I thought it was a little rude. Like, we don't care about your diagnosis. And I'm in my mind going, I came all this way and you don't even want to hear?
Yeah.
It was in my mind. And they said, because we're going to find the root.
Yeah. That's just the label that Western medicine has put on it as far as what the symptoms are showing. But that's not the reason you're sick. That's just what they're calling it.
Right. And so then I'm like, okay. And so then I described what I was experiencing. They named it.
Yeah. They said, we know what's happening. It's called akathisia. We'd never heard the term. And they had a brochure that they showed him, or a flyer. And it's basically only caused by pharmaceutical drugs.
Unbelievable.
And so they say it's the psychiatrist's best kept secrets, whether they don't know what it is or they don't share. But basically, I'll kind of read through. The physical akathisia includes electrical currents running through body, brain, bones, muscle, skin, core, everywhere. A burning as if acid is running through veins and brain. Indescribable inner movement, a terrible, unbearable shaking, exploding, vibrating, juddering, pulsating, nonstop convulsion.
And so just those things there, I had a buzzing in my head for the longest time, and they would just tell me, oh, it's just anxiety. And I'm like, this isn't, it was weird. And then I also finally figured out, and they described it, that those inside tremors, it's like having a seizure in your body. And that's what I had the whole time. That it never went away. And that's what I couldn't explain to my family when I said I was shaking.
Yeah.
Inside, it wasn't my hands outside. And so I'm finally like, oh my gosh, that is what I have. That's what I'm experiencing. So as awful as this was, it was like, oh, finally, at least we know, somebody finally can tell me what I have.
And they're not saying you're crazy, that it's just something you have to ignore. They're finally saying, no, this is something we've seen before.
And what's
Yes.
crazy is this was before any of the blood results or the urine. This was the next day after those tests. Those tests didn't come back for another week. So we didn't even know what the root was, but they're like, this is what you're experiencing.
And so they actually put him on 2 pharmaceutical medications. One was a beta blocker, and I can't remember the other one, but those were to help those symptoms until
Okay.
he could get off the medications.
Yeah. And so then what kind of transpired in Arizona was they had to find out what it was, and they found out what it was. And there was really 3 things wrong with me. I had a toxicity of metal in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that can simulate anxiety. We all have these things in us, but in my case, what had happened was it boiled over.
Mm.
It just got to where my body couldn't handle it anymore. It got to a level where it was unbearable, so to speak. And then I had two hormone imbalances. So that's what I had, was a high metal and two hormones.
So basically, testosterone was low and his cortisol was super high. So they said his organs were exhausted.
Sure, that makes
Having
sense.
cortisol so high for so long.
Yeah, my cortisol had been high for a year. And so that's why I was so restless and I just wanted to sleep because I didn't want to feel that stuff. And so that's what the blood work and the urine showed. And so then now we have a plan of attack. And so the attack was, we're going to start lowering these meds. We're going to supplement you with natural supplements. The diet was extremely strict. No soy, no dairy, no sugar, no gluten. It was whole foods, all organic. I mean, you got no pop, you got no caffeine. It was really strict. They had a chef, and so they made our food. I don't even know if they allowed us to buy food. I think they did, but they had to read all the labels. And this was crazy. As 50 years old, having people do this for me, I'm like, this is nuts. I actually seen a dentist while I was there, and they took out my metal fillings.
Nice. Good.
Mercury wasn't my issue, but it actually ended up being tin. So diet, clean diet, going to start lowering prescriptions, put you on supplements. And then I had to do a heavy dose of detox. And so they had what they called the detox shop. And we would go there Monday through Friday, and you could go anytime you wanted. They opened at 9. And I had one of the counselors tell me one time, he says, you know, some of these people roll in at 10 and you only get 4 hours there. And he said, you know, he goes, if you roll in at 10 and you're here 40 days of treatment for that, because you don't go on weekends, he's like, you're shorting yourself 40 hours. And I'm like, you know what? I paid a lot of money to come here, getting all 4 hours. And so I made sure I was on the first trip because the detox shop was about 3 blocks away. And I was always there at 9. I got there when they opened, because I mean, they found out what was wrong with me. They're telling me they can fix it. I'm all in. And so I would get to the detox shop, and you'd meet with a nurse every morning, and she would take your vitals. They would give you some supplements. You'd have to do a little amount of exercise, about 20 minutes, and then you could do all kinds of treatments. Sauna, they wanted you to sauna up to 2 hours. You'd get out about every 15 minutes to rinse off the toxins, because they gave you supplements to also help you sweat out toxins.
Exactly.
And so that was part of the treatment. So you'd rinse off those toxins every 15 minutes. I was able to build up to 2 hours. It's a long time being in and out of a sauna. We did ionic foot baths, where just a little electrical thing in the water that would basically pull out inflammation and things from your feet. The bottom of your feet have the most pores. Glutathione, I did that.
Like a nebulizer treatment.
Yeah, they had
chelation IV therapy to help get the metals out of his system. I mean, there was all sorts of.
And there was some that weren't very pleasant, but I did them all. She's like, what about this one? Most people don't want to do that one. I'm like, if it'll help, I'll do it. I mean, I'm like, listen, we're getting whatever we got to get straightened out. And so, and this is, Arizona in February and March. So you'd think it would be a great place to be. It was a beautiful country. I wasn't excited to be there though. And so every Friday I got to meet with the naturopath doctor and the detox doctor. And I would be like, okay, nothing's changing. I still feel this way. And they're like, you have to understand something. When you're dealing with natural stuff, first of all, we got to clean your body up. And this is cleaning your body up, and we're getting stuff out and we're putting good in, but it's not like an oil change where it's 30 minutes. And at this point, I'm not a very patient person anyways, but I'm like, come on. And so we got to about week 6, and it was a weekend. I went through my 6th week, and I was on a hike. We used to take hikes because this is a really beautiful mountainy area of Arizona. And we go on hikes. And so we were on a hike, and I just felt different. I'm like, I feel a little bit maybe better. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel as bad as I did. And that was it probably had been happening. That was the first time I'm like, okay, wait a minute, something's changing.
First time it registered. Sure.
Yeah. And so I'll share a little bit about what Jill was going through at home, because we were both having different journeys this time.
So looking back at my journaling, like when he ended up going to Wisconsin, I instantly stopped journaling for whatever reason. And now looking back, that's when my bitterness, anger really started kicking in. Like, okay, is this going to be forever? What am I going to do here? This is not my husband. I don't know what to do. And so when he went to Arizona, like he said, his sister flew him down because I'm like, I'm not flying him down.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah, I'm kind of done.
you know, starting my job. And
Mhm.
I had gotten to a point where I was like, okay, when he comes home, he's going to sleep in the bedroom downstairs. I'm done until he gets this figured out. Like I was done. Well, while he was in Arizona, I was invited to this conference. And it was Jennifer Martin Dark Horse Conference, and it was on trauma healing. And when a friend of mine was like, you know, I kind of been prompted to go to this too. Let's go. And I'm just like, this was completely out of my comfort zone.
Yes, thank goodness for good friends.
I know. And I was just like, all right, God, if you want me to go here, I'm open. You know, I have no idea. And when I went, I was open to it. But that first night, he delivered me
Mm.
from my bitterness, my anger, my trauma. It was crazy. I'd never experienced anything like that before, but I was so thankful. And even someone I had just met there that next day, I kind of shared because it was like God revealed it to me that that's what happened. And she was like, I can see a difference. What the heck? And even before that, my girls, they were talking about having an intervention with me because I had gotten so bitter and negative about things. And I was like, really?
Yeah. Probably a week before that happened with Jill, I was talking to the kids because that's the only communication we had was phone calls when I was in Arizona. So I'd call each of the kids and talk to them. And I remember talking to the girls and I'm like, you know, when I talk to mom, she's angry. I mean, she's
Mhm.
just angry when we talk. And of course, up to this point, I hadn't noticed a difference. So I'm getting nervous because it's like almost go home time. Um,
Uh-oh.
and I remember the girls saying, well, we're thinking that we're going to have an intervention. We're going to sit mom down and tell her she's, you know, what is her problem? And I'm like, well, a couple things. I didn't tell you to do that because she's not happy with me. So don't be saying dad said.
Yeah, right.
You guys do that if you're comfortable. I said, I think what we need to do is pray. I said, let's just pray for mom. And so it was interesting again through this whole journey. And we had these God winks, even in the stuff we've told you, there was God winks, but these were some big ones where it's like, they told me this. I'm like, let's pray about it. She goes to this conference, was just totally not in her wheelhouse and is delivered. Now, one didn't know about the other. At this point, Jill didn't know the kids were telling me this and that I was telling them this and that we were praying for her. And so someday when we get to see it all, it's going to be like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
wow, just the plan he had.
So the timing of this also that weekend that I was freed, that's when Tom, it was week 6. So God freed him as well that
Wow.
weekend. So when I called him, he was out on a walk, I guess, with the group. And that was the first time in a year he'd actually listened to me. And it wasn't focused on him. And I was like, okay, all right. And my kids could see a difference. You know, they were like, okay, mom, tell me about it. My daughter bought me flowers, you know, and
Oh my God.
so also we needed to find somewhere for Tom to follow up when he got back because he wasn't done with his like chelation IV treatments and things like that. And I was like, all right, where are we going to go? So I'm researching that, trying to find a place. And luckily we found somewhere about an hour away from us that we had never heard of, and this little diamond in the rough, right? And so Arizona had called him and he's like, absolutely, I'll take him on as care. And so we went there and we continue now, still seeing him there, but they finished getting the metals out of his body. They finished detoxing him and weaning him off of his medications, his pharmaceutical medications. And it took about a year.
Yeah. So when I got to week 8 and I had to come home, I was feeling a little better. I'm like, okay, this is working. It took longer than I wanted to, but I'm like, okay, maybe this is it. And wasn't feeling great. The shakiness was gone, but you know, had a lot of nausea and just some other things that were going on. But when I got home, then yeah, I finished up my chelations. I had a few weeks left of that, and then he sat down with me. And when I was in Arizona, they treat so many different people. They kind of give you a baseline of supplements. They got to kind of get you almost baseline. And so when I got home, the doctor here said, okay, now we're going to kind of specialize in what you need.
Yeah.
And so he kind of changed my regimen of supplements. And then I finished a few treatments. And then over the course of the next year, I thought it would be 3 months. I'm like, hey, we're rolling 3 months. I'm going to be off these prescriptions. I'm going to be great. And this was April of 23. And so probably January of 24 is when I'm like, okay, I kind of feel like I'm coming back. My memory was still not back. I had actually went back to school because I was going to go into a different work field. The position I had was filled. When I went back, what was going to be offered was not something I was interested in. And so I'm still on disability, but I went back to school and I had a heck of a time retaining anything. Jill and I would watch a movie. 2 days later, we'd tell our small group. And she's like, yeah, we watched such and such a movie. And I'm like, we did?
Wow.
Couldn't remember. I knew we watched a movie. I couldn't tell you what it was. So my memory was not back yet. But by January of 24, I started to feel better. I was slowly getting weaned off of medications. And it took until June of 24. So we started this in February of 22 when I took my last small dose of a prescription drug.
Wow.
And they were able to get me off of actually my high blood pressure medication and another medication that weren't related to this.
Wow.
So I'm on nothing for prescriptions. And I was on some of those for 15 years prior to this whole episode. And so, probably the biggest thing for me, I mean, other than finding out what it was, anybody going through what we're going through, but not just what we're going through, anything, I'm not a doctor and I can't tell you that they can fix everything, but I think a lot of things that people are diagnosed with, that's a symptom.
Yeah.
There's a root. And if you want to find out the root, I think that it's not going to be easy, but I think there's other options. And, I look back, I was on over this time period, we're talking a year of really kind of, let's try this, let's try that, 23 different medications.
Wow.
And
just 7 at a time sometimes.
And
And
so-
all of them were very high doses.
And so when you look at that and you think, they say this drug does this, but what happens when you put 7 of them together,
Exactly.
and you have prescription soup, and this one will help that, and this one will help that. And then you wonder why I didn't have a memory. I was feeling this, I was feeling that.
Every single pharmaceutical has side effects. Every
Yes.
single one of them. And
And
they're
when they test them, they test the one. They
Right.
don't test them together.
So,
So they don't know what they do together.
right. Oh,
and again, we're not knocking Western medicine. I have very good friends that are doctors and
Yes.
nurses. Jill was in that field for 17 years,
Yeah.
but I've just learned for me personally and for our family, there's a place for Western medicine and there's a place to let, God, he created it all. I think he's created the cures. And I don't think the cures come in something we've made.
no,
I
no.
think it comes in stuff he's created. And people can say that's crazy. And I would have never been a believer 2 years ago. And that's part of the reason he probably had me go through this. He's like, I got to teach you a lesson, buddy. Let's go. But
Well, and it's
Ye-
not all or nothing, right? It's like
right,
when you have a fever, your child's got a fever, you want that acetaminophen. When
right,
you've got an infection, you need that penicillin. When
Right.
you've got an allergic reaction, you need that EpiPen. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
because of the successes that Western medicine has had on some of those acute kind of treatments, we think that those kinds of treatments work for everything. When in fact, when you've got metal toxicity or you've got those kinds of things going on, even long-term depression, inflammation, Western medicine has not cracked the code for inflammation yet. They keep
Right.
trying to throw things at it, but I wasn't sick because I had a shortage of steroids in my system. My body wasn't nutritionally deficient of steroids. So yes, I just want to restate that that's so important that Western medicine has some beautiful outcomes. And it's the reason that they have these miraculous outcomes that we are thinking, oh, let's just apply it to everything. But in fact, we do need to have balance.
Yeah, I would say, your general health, you got to get to the roots. And I have, I think, and we live in a world and we live in a time when it's not just with our health, it's with everything. You want it now.
Yes.
And so, hey, give me that pill. I'm too busy to worry about this. Just give me a pill. I'll take the pill. I got to get back to work. I got to get back to that. And unfortunately, life was cruising and we were just living it and life was great. And we hit this and it was like everything changed. It's like, okay, everything now is going slow. And even to this day, I mean, we are both out of the fields we were in, exploring new things. And we have to give that to God too, because it's like, okay, God, I don't know what next month brings or tomorrow. And so, you know, we've also learned a lot of that. People say you got to live day by day and trust him day by day. And I think we thought we did. But it's real easy when you're cruising along and everything's going good. And it's like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. And then you hit this and then it's like, okay, you're all I have.
Well, and you know, it's easy because our insurances pay for Western medicine. It's easy to go
Right.
that foot. And to
Yes.
think of more of the holistic naturopathic, it's a commitment. It's a sacrifice you have to really think about because you are paying out of your pocket most of the time.
Yeah.
But if you think about your health, is it worth it? And there's hope out there. This is kind of our goal to share our story is there's hope. It's not a dead end. It's not you're not stuck where you're at. You are not your diagnosis.
Right.
That is not your identity. There's more. And God wants us healed and happy here on earth because he wants us to do his work.
Yeah. And it's not just, I mean, we talk mental health here because of what we went through and what I was, and I'll always say it was a misdiagnosis because the root is what really was wrong with me.
Right.
It'll be in my medical record forever. I'm not going to contest it. It really doesn't matter. But I know that's not what I had. I had these root problems. And I think that's with anything people are going through, not just mental health. Just consider, I looked at how I felt and how I feel now. You know, even just a quick kind of off the blurb story, but, you know, Jill wasn't feeling real great. And at one point recently in the last 6 months or maybe 8 months, and I said, you need to go see this doctor. And she's like, let's just get you straightened out, buddy. And before we start investing in me. And I said, no, it's time for you to go. And so she went and met with him and she said, hey, these are the things I'm experiencing. Nothing to the level I went through, but just some things. And he said, you know, if you would have went to your Western medicine doctor, he would have put you on an SSRI today.
Yes.
And that's not her problem.
Mm-mm.
And so he started her down the whole other path. And, you know, yeah, they're still trying to figure things out. But a lot of that stuff has changed for her.
Yeah.
And so we were both just floored. I'm like, really? And he's like, because he actually is an MD too. So he has both. So he knows. And so I mean, even for me to go, what? She's not even dealing with what I was dealing with. Why would she go on that drug?
Yeah. So how are you feeling today, Tom? Are you feeling back to your pre-symptom Tom?
For the most part, I think I'm doing pretty well. Every once in a while, I'll have a little memory issue. And that's hard too, because a lot of that 1.5 to 2 years, if things did happen and I don't remember them, I'm not going to remember them now. And so I kind of feel like I've lost a little bit of that. I remember a lot of it, but there's certain things that I don't remember. And Joe will bring up and say, do you remember that? And I'm like, no. We went to a conference and the person covered this whole subject. We went 6 months later and she covered the same topic and I didn't remember the last one. I was like, it should be in your notes. I'm like, what are you talking about? But it's gotten a ton better. You know, probably the most mentally and just even those sensations are all gone. Now we just need to get it back to our diet and physical health because we look back and we're like, oh man, but no, I feel great, but it's been a journey.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, anybody, again, you know, this podcast goes out both audio as well as video. And so for anyone just listening today, you got to know that Tom just has a nice, joyful glow on his face, as does Jill. So, you know, it's nice to see that you guys have been able to come back to a place where you're grounded and you found your joy again and you passed the craziness of what was going on and you're more into slowly moving forward. And I think I will go out on a limb and say, I think your memory is going to continue to improve because neurological changes and damage is the slowest part to heal. And so that'll come back over time. But what a journey this whole cycle has been for you of going full circle, of, you know, experiencing that whole year or year and a half on a bunch of medicines that were actually making you worse when what you really needed to do was empty the bucket of toxicity. You're basically filling a already full bucket of toxicity with more toxins.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, I am so grateful for the time you guys that you took to share your story. Before we wrap up, are there any final takeaways that you want to just make sure people are aware of as any encouragements or takeaways that you'd like them to know?
I guess just know they're not alone. Thankfully, we were surrounded by our small group, our church, our friends' churches, and they were continually praying for us. They were as perplexed as we were through all this. But even, if you don't have that community, don't isolate yourself. Get out, be with people, even if you're a blubbering mess. Share with people, allow them to be with you, pray with you, reach out if you need that person. But yeah, I mean, you're not alone. There's hope. That's the big thing. There's hope.
And I think one of the reasons we want to be able to share is hopefully people don't have to get to the point we did.
Right.
Maybe they're feeling kind of something and they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe this is more than I think it is. Because this could have been a whole different story if I would have known this a year prior. Like I said, for me, it was almost felt like a switch, but hopefully people don't have to go through what I went through and what my family went through and my friends. I'm so thankful that even Jill stuck around, because I wasn't the person that she thought I wasn't the person I thought I was. And so we just hope it can help people.
I know it will, actually, because yes, your story could have been a lot better if you had found out about it a year earlier. But if that car hadn't stalled, or if other things hadn't happened, you wouldn't be here to tell this story.
Absolutely.
So because of that, I know this story is going to affect and impact people, and I'm really grateful and honored that I can help share that story. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just love how Jill and Tom have worked together through this entire process and never gave up on each other as they were seeking out solutions. I have 6 helpful takeaways for you today. Number 1, the importance of holistic health. Traditional Western medicine may not have all the answers. Well, at least not all the time. While we all too often just want to take a pill and have our comforts restored, Jill and Tom's journey is a reminder that shows us that can actually create more problems. Getting to the root cause is the real key. If your body's overloaded with toxins from pharmaceuticals or other environmental pressures, putting more pharmaceutical pressure in the body is not going to help. We must always be asking why. Why am I feeling like this? Why am I getting these symptoms? And then be willing to take the time needed to address the root cause, because that's when we'll find breakthroughs that conventional treatments may never discover. We need to keep asking why. We need a balanced approach, and we need to realize that there is a place for both Western and alternative medicine when we're trying to heal and we aren't getting the answers. Number 2, your emotional and mental health really matters. Mental health struggles like Tom's panic attacks and anxiety that he felt have a deep emotional toll on the person and their spouse and really the entire family. When a family member is sick, often the weight falls to just one person. That person has to deal with their own fears and concerns about the matter, but they are also usually the one who has to do all the research and all the discussion with doctors and facilities and figure out the prescriptions and manage all the financial burden. In this case, Jill was carrying all of the emotional weight and the frustration with all those conventional treatments that were unfortunately not a help. The emotional and mental well-being of everyone involved is a critical component to overall recovery for the entire family. Number 3, the power of perseverance. Jill's relentless search for alternative options, despite her initial hesitations and the setbacks that they ran into along the way, played a critical role in Tom's recovery. Well, and in hers as well. And I cannot overstate this, my friends. Don't give up. You will find a solution. You will find the right provider. You will find a holistic doctor or an allopathic doctor, but you will get to the root cause if you just don't give up. Even if everyone's telling you one thing and you know in your gut that something else is going on, keep on researching, keep on praying, keep on seeking answers, because you will find them. Number 4, God's timing and healing. Jill's emotional healing when she was at home and Tom's physical recovery while he was in Arizona illustrates the power of divine timing on how healing, whether physical or emotional, often comes when we least expect it. The journey is almost always about more than just a medical treatment. It's this crazy amalgamation of medical treatment and physical and emotional healing and spiritual growth, and the journey that we are all on to continue learning how to trust God and His plan. Number 5, recovery is a long, personal journey. I've said it so many times here at the Sunshine Cafe, but with some very rare exceptions, we do not get sick overnight. And the journey from illness to health isn't quick either. Sometimes we take weeks before we notice any healing, and sometimes we feel healing right away. You can rest assured that you'll have your ups and your downs on your journey back to health. Tom was ready to give up completely, as was Jill at one point. They both hit their lowest of lows, but the process that God allowed brought them through that storm to the solutions that they needed for long-lasting, permanent health that stemmed from permanent changes. And consistency was the key, as well as Tom's relentless dedication to do whatever he had to improve and get healthy again. His commitment, his consistency, Jill's perseverance, and the huge helping of prayer and support that they got from their family and their community, that's what got them all through this. And they are forever changed because of it. And finally, number 6, the God winks. Throughout Tom and Jill's journey, they experienced countless God winks, moments where God's presence was unmistakably felt, guiding their decisions and confirming their path. From miraculous provision that made treatment possible to divine timing that opened doors for Jill to be the caregiver, every step in their journey was marked by God's faithfulness. These God winks remind us that even when we don't fully understand what's happening, God does. He is always at work, guiding us and using us through the process to not only bring healing to our own lives, but to impact others along the way. No matter what the struggle is, there is always hope, my friends. And God is working behind the scenes, leading us to healing and transformation, and amazingly, helping us be changed physically, emotionally, and spiritually along the way, all for the better. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you will, please share this episode. You just never know what kind of encouragement might be in this conversation that someone else needs to hear. So pass it along, share it, like it, and subscribe. Let's work together to flood the world with more encouragement. Until next time, my friends, stay encouraged and be inspired. We'll see you right back here next time at the Sunshine Cafe.